Dear NYSPA members, I wanted to provide a mid-year update on several activities that NYSPA has been doing for you on a day-to-day to help you with your practices. When running for president, I campaigned with several priorities: unity, protecting your practices; diversity, building bridges with academic psychologists; working hard for our students and early career psychologists; developing new leaders; and membership development. I will review some of the activities that NYSPA has done in the last 6 months, but I want to start with a special thank you to the central office team. None of this would have been possible without the hard work and flexibility of Lori Sales Cutler, Nora Sari, and Lauren Duncan. Thank you very much for your hard work and overtime at times. I know that Lori is probably sick of me because she gets calls sometimes at 10, 11 o'clock at night, but she's gracious enough to answer. Next, I want to talk a little bit about our council and executive committee. Our president-elect, Dr. Chris Allen, and our past president, Dr. Alan Hack, and I meet weekly to talk over some of the day-to-day issues that arise. Moreover, I have weekly calls with the Director of Professional Affairs and Dr. Jerry Groden. Our executive committee as a whole, we have been meeting every 2 weeks until June because of COVID. We've also had 2 council meetings, and we have an additional special council meeting on July 26 for several procedural votes. As you can see, your leadership team has been working very hard on a day-to-day and a week-to-week to make sure that you get the most value in your membership. I would also like to talk a little bit about some of our lobbying efforts, and the key stakeholders here which deserve credit are Park Strategies, which is our lobbyist firm, Dr. Jerry Groden, our DPA, Dr. John Northman, who is our legislative committee chair, and Dr. Danelia Rosa, who is our grassroots coordinator. Since the beginning of the year, our lobbyist and legislative team has been incredibly active. We too have weekly lobbyist and legislative team committee meetings. In February, NYSPA's executive team went up for an executive lobby day. And in March, we were part of a lobbying team in Washington, D.C. at the Practice Leadership Conference, where we met several senators, including Schumer and Gillibrand. Now, if you're wondering what advocacy can do, I want to provide some highlights of our advocacy. First, let's talk about our practitioner-based advocacy. When COVID started, there was a real threat to our profession, and there was a lot of uncertainty as to what would be. So these are just a select few examples of what we were able to accomplish. We were able to get psychology listed as an essential employee to allow psychologists to continue in their practices without the threat of furlough and layoffs. We also were able to get psychologists listed as a protected group from civil liability when providing volunteerism when the governor made a call for mental health professionals. We were able to get the governor to issue an executive order for telephone-only therapy for commercial insurance plans during the COVID crisis. We are also working to extend, and this is an ongoing effort today, we're working to extend telepractice for an additional 12 months. And we've already had a bill signed off by the governor that would allow telephone-only therapy for commercial insurances even after the COVID crisis. We are working with CMS and APA to advocate for the same. So that's just a sampling of what our hard legislative team has been doing. However, we've also noticed that our students and early career psychologists are notably vulnerable. As a function of this, we sent letters to the directors of clinical training to advocate for teletherapy services for their interns and externs due to the risks associated with the COVID pandemic. We partnered with APA and training directors to push for modification in practice hours. We met with the Board of Regents and the State Education Department, and they passed alternative forms for earning clinical hours. And we are currently advocating for a bill that would extend the limited permit for postdocs who are affected by not being able to sit for the EPPP, or their limited permit would expire and then they would have to pay for a renewal. Now, in terms of letters and advocacy for our members, or on behalf of our members, in the last 6 months, we've issued no fewer than 15 letters and statements that were sent to APA, Governor Cuomo, the State Education Department, the Buffalo News, and the Workers' Compensation Board. In terms of membership initiatives, a special thanks goes to Dr. Adriana DiMatteo, which is our recording secretary of the association, and Dr. Dina Abbey, who is the chair of the committee. To date, we have 1,554 members, which is a retention rate of 91%, which is fairly good as people are renewing guild organizations at lower rates. We also developed special programs, which includes a bulk rate membership for academic psychologists who join in groups of 5 and 10. We will continue our efforts. My goal when running was to actually increase membership, not be in a 91% retention rate. However, we're still short of these goals, so I'm asking you, each of the members, to encourage at least one of your colleagues to join NYSPA. All of the advocacy happens because of your membership dollars. In terms of financial matters, in January, well, let me start by acknowledging our treasurer, Dr. Ann Altunian, who has worked very hard for us. In January, Dr. Altunian and the Finance Committee created a budget. But based on where we were slated to start the year with roughly $55,000 over budget, where we would have to make up in different ways. Due to cost-saving measures such as electronic programming, we've begun to close this gap. Now on to our bylaws. I'm pleased to report that Dr. Alan Hack is chairing our new bylaws committee, and he will be working alongside his committee to review our bylaws and rules of council. These are intended to increase clarity and reflect the changes in our organizational structure since the last revision. Now, COVID has taken a front seat for my presidential year. So I'd like to reflect on some of the things that NYSPA has been doing related to COVID. We had 3 town halls, one for members, one for non-members, and one for students and early career psychologists. We had 3 special meetings with directors of clinical training in New York State. We had 2 meetings with the State Education Board. We had 1 meeting with the governor's office and issued a 128-page resource manual for COVID. In addition, our disaster resource network, chaired by Drs. Evelyn Rappaport and Roy Aranda, kicked into high gear. We started our disaster relief network. Currently, we have over 100 volunteers for this network and have partnerships with a national organization called Give an Hour and the Office of Mental Health. More recently, we have released our own phone line, and we are actively providing services for those who call in. We also have offered training in trauma work through DRN webinars. To date, we have done 6 training webinars to focus on somatic work, neurobiology, understanding the various types of trauma, trauma in organizations, and working with children and trauma. We will also be having a very practical webinar entitled Nuts and Bolts of Being a DRN Provider in the upcoming week. So if you haven't considered being a DRN provider, please sign up for our volunteer network and please go to that webinar. But in addition to the DRN webinars, we've also been having practice-based webinars led by our insurance committee and our insurance committee chair in Dr. June Fader. This has dealt with the use of telehealth when COVID first started, how to make the clinical process work over telehealth, some financial relief packages that happened as a function of COVID, and ethical and clinical and legal considerations for reopening your practice. So I want to thank the Insurance Committee and Dr. June Fader for that. Now, we also have created 2 presidential task forces. The first one that I'd like to talk about is called a Presidential Task Force for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. This is chaired by Drs. Anu Raj and Alex Straightner, who are also members at large for the NYSPA's Executive Committee. As a function of this, we've had an event on racial trauma, we've had a town hall on diversity, and we are developing a survey that's going to go out to the membership. Special thanks to Dr. Vernon Smith and Dr. Amina Mahmood, who are working on that survey, just to get a better picture of your experience with diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're also working to do our first of what we hope will be an annual audit on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our second presidential task force is a task force on grief and loss, which is chaired by Dr. Courtney Bancroft. And the task force is currently working on putting together groups, support groups, as well as a series of resources for grief and loss in response to COVID. One such resource, which I want to acknowledge, is Dr. Pat Pitta, who put together a marvelous blue book on grief as part of this initiative. So thank you, Pat. We also have a website redesign team that's chaired by Dr. Anu Raj, and we are working to create a new and user-friendly website with intuitive icons and a more dynamic feel. As part of this website redesign, one thing will be a searchable database for externships, internships, and postdocs. This will help our students and ECPs accumulate the hours they need for licensure. Additionally, we will have a search engine for resources and publications that our members have conducted that too we're aiming to have a searchable option. So if you're interested in child psychology, you might be able to find books and articles from our members who have written in that area. So special thanks to Anuraj and the website redesign team. We also have a technology committee. This committee was created not in my year, but last year. And the co-chairs are Dr. Danielle Zito and Michelle Wugin. And they're working to develop resources to help divisions and regions create programs that are more accessible for members throughout the state. Moreover, the committee will be deploying a survey on technology for the members in the upcoming weeks just to get an understanding of your technology needs and familiarity. Our awards committee, chaired by Dr. Herb Gingold, has already kicked into high gear. You may have noticed a call for nominees throughout the past few months. That time period has concluded. Dr. Herb Gingold was selected as the new awards committee chair after the unfortunate passing of Dr. Larry Baker. They've begun to review the applications for the annual convention, and of special note, there was this year a new award that was approved entitled the Dr. Roy Arand Award for Social Justice, and this is specifically focused towards students and advocacy. So I want to thank Dr. Herb Gingold and his committee for doing that. In terms of continuing education, we also have a SEEE committee and a SEEE subcommittee of the Legislative Committee. So Dr. John Hogan is in charge of our SEEE committee. He has been gracious enough to prepare NYSPA's application for reaccreditation as an APA CE provider. He's also been reviewing the CE applications for the annual convention. Dr. Javier, as well, has been monitoring the CE regulatory process with the State Education Department to make sure that we have input in the regulations before the CE requirements become active in 2021. Now, there are some other activities and announcements I want to draw your attention to before concluding. The first is our annual convention. You may have received notice that our convention was postponed due to the COVID pandemic. We could not do it in June, so we rescheduled our convention to October 16th through the 18th, and we've changed it to a virtual format to address the needs and comfort of our members. So please, please, please look out for a new registration link and a new fee schedule, which will be sent for you for early registration. We have a very powerful slate of presenters. It is going to be a fantastic event, and I hope that you will be able to join us. Now, unfortunately, NYSPA has had quite a few losses in the past 6 months, some due to COVID, some otherwise. So we've lost Dr. Larry Baker, as mentioned above, Dr. David Beta, Dr. Hector Rivera, Dr. Kathy Doyle, Dr. Jean Lao Chin and her husband, Jean Chin, Dr. Phil Brumberg, and Dr. David Nevin. I haven't been able to stop thinking about our members and our losses, and it is with incredible sadness that I had to read that list of names. However, as a way of tribute, NYSPA will be creating an in memoriam section of the Grief and Loss Task Force page, which will be upcoming. So if there is a member that you would like to add that passed away that you would like us to honor and tribute, please email Central Office. And with that, I will stop. I wish you a happy 4th of July weekend, and I hope that the second half of my presidential term is as fruitful as the first, and it is an honor and privilege to be your president. Thank you very much, and stay blessed.